Express yourself. Hello, and welcome back to the Feminine Expressions Talks, where we invite the wisdom of women and rediscover the feminine ways. My name is Antje, I am the host, and today I'm here with Autumn Skye. And I'm super excited to have her here because she is the creatrix of this wonderful painting that's behind me and that's accompanying all of these talks. So I'm super happy to talk and hear Autumn's story today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here with you, and thank you so much for the invitation and for sharing my art through your talks. And yeah, it's great to join you from British Columbia. I'm on the Sunshine Coast, and it's a beautiful day here.
Wonderful.
Nice to connect.
So to begin, would you just introduce yourself with a few short words, maybe, so everybody knows who you are?
All right. My name is Autumn Skye, and I am a painter. I paint lots of imagery of archetypes and feminine mystical visions, as well as human and natural integration and connection, and the interdependence and interconnection between all living things, seen and unseen.
That's a really wonderful description. I love it. So to dive right in, when did you start painting? How did this journey begin?
Oh, I don't even remember. My mom says I was painting or making pictures before I could talk or walk. So it's always been my constant. Art has always been my focus, my obsession even, and my best friend all the way through elementary school, high school. I was really supported as well by my arts program. And then it just has continued to take me on a journey for the last couple decades. It's been really ever evolving, and it teaches me so much.
That's so wonderful to hear that you were supported in this right from the beginning. I had kind of the same support in my dance, but I remember when I was in high school, my art teacher told me that I couldn't paint. And that's why until now, I never painted. I mean, I kind of, like now I start and I try, but I have this block and I know it's put inside me from the outside because, I mean, maybe I wasn't the biggest talent, but you can't tell a kid that, I feel. So, yeah, how did this support work for you? Like I want to know more about how you were supported in this.
Well, it gave me a freedom of expression that the more I experience through my own teaching process and working with other painters, the more I realized that it was very rare. Like everyone has voices in their heads, myself included. Everyone, no matter how supported you are or were, has voices that echo doubts and fears and inhibitions, and they can be really incapacitating. And sometimes those voices are from our teachers or from our parents or from our siblings. It can come from a lot of different places, and they can be very subtle to the point that we don't even realize that they're somebody else's voices. So I'm grateful that, now as an adult, I don't have to start again saying, oh, I used to love to make art and now I want to do it again. But at the same time, I don't believe that it's ever too late. And so when I'm teaching, so many of my students, were those traumatized 5-year-olds that were told, stop wasting paper, or to, get a real job, or whatever it was that they were told, that they weren't good enough, or that art wasn't, that either they weren't worthy of art or art wasn't worthy of them. And so much of my teaching is the reprogramming of that, and just relax into it. It's the fear doesn't go away, but it's the moving through the fear that really, it just shows you again and again that you are supported.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, once I started, like I had this phase in my late 20s where I had my first real job and I was super, super stressed. And I just had this need to be creative because I was like sitting in front of the computer all day. I was working in art. This is funny. Like, but at the university, and it was a lot of like organizing and being in meetings and a lot of not fun stuff. And I felt that I just had this draw inside myself, and even though I had this inhibition, I had to take pen and paper, and I just drew and painted and did like crazy stuff, and it didn't matter what it looked like. And I think like this is the step back to it, to just do it for yourself. But I wonder, how does it feel to you to show your art to other people? Because it's like, to me, it's always like this very intimate process that I experience making art, and then it's like another step to actually bring it out and to show it to the world, and to, you know, stand there and be like, this is my painting, by the way.
Yeah, it's a whole mix. You know, part of it is I really believe that the more authentic we can be in our expression, the more that people connect with it. There's something about that that imprint, the energetic imprint of a creation, whether it's dance, food, music, art, anything, that people really feel. And when something is created from a way that's not contrived or not, you know, trying to be something, you know, paint something because that's what sells. If it's really created from that personal, authentic place, then people connect. And when people connect with artwork, what I witness again and again is that it was never mine. You know, it comes through me, and I'm honored and I'm thrilled by it, and it takes me to amazing places, and I work my ass off at it. However, you know, the better it is, the less I can take credit for it. Really, I am so supported from so many aspects of my life and spirit that for me to not share it is to create a vacuum for that inspiration that I believe would sever it eventually. It would block it up. So the more I share, the more I receive to share. So it's really about keeping that channel open and clear so that I can be a conduit. So you say, this is my painting, you also give it up and say, this is a painting that, you know, I created with the help of spirit, or whatever you want to call it. You know, it's not really about you anymore. And when people say, oh, that's amazing, or whatever they say, yeah, really learning to receive that, because people want to share their appreciation, but also at the same time reflecting it to them and reflecting it to wherever that inspiration has come from.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a nice way of experiencing it. I love that. So
yeah, you've been giving this gift, you know, and so why would you not share the gift? It's you know, who are you to doubt the gift?
So how does this gift come to you? How is your process? Like, do you see what you paint before you paint it? Or I saw one time a video of you painting, I think, where it was like a fast forward kind of thing. And I remember there was a lot of layers that don't actually show in the picture. And that like fascinated me so much. So yeah, would you talk about the process a little bit?
Yeah, it's you know, sometimes I start with just a feeling or a figure, the idea of a position or some sort of elements. It's usually, I consider it like the seed of an idea. So I start with something. Sometimes I just get splashy on the canvas and sort of see where it goes, but usually I start with some sort of direction. And then as I work, it unfolds. It really, ideas come, and I really have learned over time to trust that when it feels right, even if it means a whole bunch of extra work or undoing something that I've been working on, to just keep moving forward with it, and to take risks and take leaps of faith, and knowing, you know, if you don't have the answer for some aspect, some part of the composition, if I don't know what's going to be there, it's that I don't have all the information yet. So work on what I do know, and I will work away on areas that I know need to move forward. And then it all comes clear in perfect time. It really is an amazing journey, and it's really about listening to the painting, listening to your intuition, showing up and doing the best you can, you know, regardless of the time that you know is ahead or the work that you've done that you might be precious about. It's really staying present and moving forward at the same time.
I love it. That reminds me of, I make jewelry like this with macrame, with little tiny string. And I remember my husband always says that he cannot understand how I can be so patient, because literally even if I almost finish something, if I see that there's a wrong knot somewhere in the middle, I'm gonna untie it. And it takes like such a long time. It's like so crazy to do it. And there's basically no amount of money that I could sell it for that would actually make it, you know, like count my hours or something. But then I always feel like I do it for something else. And a lot of the things that I make, I kind of feel they're not for me. I mean, like I wear them sometimes, but in the end, like most of the jewelry I made so far, I always just gave it away. And well, some of it I sold, and I'm getting better at that. So how do you sell your art? Like, how does that work to actually pass it on to someone? For you, like, because you know, I'm thinking you put so much spirit in it, and so much time and work, and, you know, sweats and tears, and in the end it's like kind of like a part of you probably. So how is it to give that away? How do you work with that? Like, do you do a ritual or something, or
I just trust that it goes where it needs to go. Sometimes that happens before it's even finished, and sometimes it takes a few years. It's really, they're all on their journey. And you know, from every scale, from like a sticker, a $5 sticker that somebody connects with, and they say, oh, you know, this moves me so much, I'm going to take this around the world with me in my backpack, to a large canvas print or a tapestry that you're using in your own work, to the original is a whole other thing. And when somebody connects with an original painting and they want to bring it into their home, they feel moved to, like I said, I realized that it was never mine. I'm the steward of them, and I do my best to care for them and to bring them into the world, but they're like children in that way. They go on their journey, and I don't have room in my house to have all my paintings. It's so precious, and such an honor that people want to bring these pieces. And so often they're first-time art buyers, people that say, I never even liked art, but I need this in my life. And so in that, I trust that it really is where it belongs.
And that it can bring healing to them, right? That's Absolutely. What I always like. So yeah, do you have any stories to tell of someone who bought a painting and like what happened to it? Do you have a favorite story or something to tell?
Oh, they're all special, really. You know, people that are moved to tears and sobbing and saying, I don't know why I'm crying, to people that see their own reflection. I really believe that paintings can be mirrors, mirrors to ourselves, mirror to society, mirrors. And what I hope to create is mirrors to the world that we want to live in. There's a place for recognizing the shadow, and I do that quite a bit in my work. But even when I'm working with the most challenging subjects, I still intend to point towards hope, to point towards solution, resolve, healing, and forward momentum with it. So yeah, it's hard to say if there's been like a special, like an extra special story, but just, yeah, it's just really an incredible honor to have these pieces find homes with people, and then to, you know, sometimes years later to visit their home and to see the piece again is always so special, because I'm so familiar, you know, it's on my website, it's all over the internet, I have stickers and prints and various things, but there's something truly, truly resonant about the original that reproduction can never actually show.
Yeah, I can see that. Talking about reflections, I realized this year when I looked at your website that there's a few, I think, well, I'm guessing they're newer because I hadn't seen them before, paintings with your face in it. Mm-hmm. Like self-portraits, I don't know if you call it that, but yeah, how is that for you to put yourself onto your own canvas?
Well, they say that even portrait painters always paint themselves into the piece, or even landscape painters. You know, it's that the artist is always embedded in there, and sometimes more literally than others. I am my most convenient model, and it's a way of me to, you know, discover new ways of myself, and also to share that authenticity and that vulnerability. So yes, often they are me in a way, but I also don't try to adhere to the likeness. Sometimes I might be modeling, but the painting might become totally a different person. So like different even in, you know, just anything. It could go all over the place. But I also have been teaching for the last 7 years, a retreat called Soul Portraits Retreat with Bella Retreats, and that's been an amazing journey. Una and I have gone all over the world and continue to teach these 7 to 10 day painting retreats. And so the idea of the soul portraits is that it's rooted in a self-portrait. So I teach anatomy and self-portraiture, you know, everything from painting nostrils and earlobes through you know, any kind of other elementals that you want to bring in around. And while rooting it in that technical lesson, it's also really about empowering the intuition and really tapping in and listening and trusting and breathing. And so it's very much the left brain, right brain, in breath, out breath, technical, intuitive balance. And so in doing that, some of the paintings that you might have seen that look like self-portraits are indeed, because they're my demonstration paintings that start as this is how you block in lights and shadows. And so I'm really in that trying more to adhere to my own likeness so that I can teach that to my students.
That's really cool. I like the idea of like connecting the two brains. And it's also like through the anatomy and all that, all the technical stuff, it's kind of like, for me, feels like the male part of it, where everything has to be very strict and correct, and, you know, and you can see if it's kind of wrong. There is actually kind of like a right and wrong. And then with the female, there's basically no right and wrong. There's like just something in between. So
about the like analytical focus of the masculine, and not to say like man, woman. It's very much about the alchemy within ourselves of, you know, the part of us that wants structure and order and focus, and then the part of us that just wants to be free and wild. And so it's, yeah, bringing that into balance and really celebrating that balance, you know, not only throughout our lives, but throughout our days or throughout our cycle. It's very much about, you know, balance is not an equal part of one or the other, being rigid down the middle of this middle point. It's very much, you think of like balance on a boat. If you're walking on a boat, you're swaying, or balance of a tree or a building even that has to sway in the wind. And so it's always a give and take balance point of motion and flexibility.
That's true. I always say that balance is the dynamic thing. It's
Yes.
not like you don't achieve it once and then it stays. Balance is like you always work on the balance, and there's basically no perfect balance. There's just like getting close to it and coming back to it and coming back to it again. So it's like a process, basically. Yeah, I love that. But you went through, well, I would say like academic art education. Would you say that you experienced this balance in your education, or are you trying to bring it out because you thought that it was missing? Like I talked to another friend who was an artist, and she told me that basically her art education was completely male oriented, and then she had to break with her art to find the female side, to find the feminine, to actually come back to being able to make art. So I wonder, how was your experience with the education part?
Well, like I said, I was really supported in high school. My high school teacher was really awesome. He just set my grade at 98% and said, do whatever you want, because he knew that I would do so much more if I had that freedom. So in that, he was a man. He was a very like technically skilled and knowledgeable artist. So I got that aspect as well, like a lot of his feedback and support in that. But having that freedom also, I would say, just let me be wild in whatever expression I wanted. I did try 1 year of art college in Calgary, and it really wasn't what I was looking for. I was definitely feeling like it was a lot more academic than I wanted. I just wanted to be picking up all the new tools, like make me a better artist. And instead I was spending most of my time writing essays. And so I only did 1 year, and I actually started dropping classes and taking night classes to make up for where I thought the curriculum was lacking. And after that, I painted sets for movies in Broadway for a couple of years, which taught me so much just about being efficient, working large scale, and making convincing portrayals of textures and landscapes. And so that was really invaluable. And then since then, I've done a few workshops here and there, but really mostly self-taught overall. That the freedom that I experienced growing up, I've carried into my adult life through just the exploration of paint. And I really believe that it's very valuable and very good to to take workshops and like find an artist that you admire and go learn from them for a short amount of time. But there's nothing that can replace just the practice of art. You can have the best bicycle rider in the world to explain to you at great lengths how to ride a bicycle, but until you get on the bicycle, you don't actually know. So just putting the practice, with the theory is so important. Every brushstroke will teach you.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what would that would be like your what you would tell someone who wants to start making art? Just learn and do it. Make art.
And like watch YouTube videos or go take a workshop for the weekend. Buy yourself some nice quality pigments, which are really valuable. Like don't use craft store, these imitation pigments that are $2 for a bottle. Like it's really, you mix red and blue that should make a beautiful purple, and it's going to make mud always. So the paint brand or like the paint quality is the most important. You can paint on anything. You can paint on your shoe or a rock or a piece of plywood. So it doesn't actually matter so much. There's an archival quality that is good to focus on if you want something to last. But really, it's the paint that's the most important to get good quality. And then just paint and play and break rules and then learn rules and break them too. And, it's really, it's all about the listening to the paint.
That's awesome. It feels so refreshing to have you talk about that. So I'm losing my words. Yeah, right. Yeah. That's like now that you say it, Would you say that there's, I mean, probably everyone who looks at it will see a different message, but are there messages in your paintings for you? Like if you see your paintings, do you remember, I don't know, like the time you painted it, what you were going through or something like this? Like, does it have that kind of quality for you?
Absolutely. However, at the same time, I often don't set out on a painting with some concrete idea of what I want to portray. Often it's much later, or when the painting is finished, or as it's unfolding, that the story begins to show itself and the meaning starts to show itself. Or sometimes it's like months and months go by and I look back and realize that it actually echoed what was going on in the world or going on in my own life. And it's multifaceted too. You know, you can look at them from a microcosm to a macrocosm of you know, the painting behind you, for instance. You can say, that's, you know, this is my women's circle. These are 13 of my friends, and we sit in circle and we make crafts or we weave stories, you know, on a very ground level. Or we can say, this is our global humanity, and celebrating the different cultures and how we all have something unique and special to offer to the greater web of life. Or we can look on a cosmic level and say, these are all our benevolent support and guides, you know, our cosmic family that's actually working with light and energy to support Earth and its transformation at this time. So it's, yeah, you know, they're mirrors to wherever you want to hold the mirror up, and they all have their own messages that sometimes, like, really, yeah, it is personal. But then I see somebody that comes up and they see it and they have a complete transformation, and I realize, oh, it's even more personal to them.
Yeah, and the story grows, right? I always see that, like with some things that, well, I had this experience a lot of time in my life that I experienced something, or like I did something, or for example, I got this tattoo. I'm gonna talk about my tattoo. I dreamed it. I saw it in a dream, and in the dream, I looked at my arm, and I had this crazy tattoo, and it would not let me go for 3 years. I had it in my head. And a friend of mine told me, just, you know, start drawing it or do something with it, because I was like almost like possessed by it. You know, it was like, And so I worked with it and I started drawing it. And then at one point I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get this tattoo. And I didn't feel like, I know for me, it didn't feel like going to a tattoo studio or something. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm going to meet the artist at one point. And I actually met the artist making music. He was drumming, I was playing didgeridoo in a drumming circle. And we just casually talked about tattoos, and I told him the story. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get this tattoo. I'm just waiting for the artist. And he was literally like, hello, here I am. And that's how it happened. And then after I got it made, I read in a book the story about the grandmother spider who weaves the web of the universal dream. And I looked at my arm and was like, this is my story. I didn't know that story before, but it's totally like the story. Wow. So I had that a lot, that the stories appear later.
Yes.
And I can see that in your paintings too. And it's really fascinating to look at it from the other side, from like, you create something without knowing the story, and then it kind of comes. It's like super fascinating.
Mm-hmm. That to me is, you know, just further indication that when we can get out of the way and let it through, that's when the profound happens. You know, if we're obsessed about like making it what we think in our mind it's supposed to look like, often it's a struggle, and it somehow lacks the spirit that otherwise would have moved through us if we would have gotten out of the way.
Yeah, that's such a great teaching, really, to get out of the way. So do you have practices to help yourself get out of the way?
Painting is that practice.
Painting is the practice.
And continues to teach me again and again. I'd love to say I meditate regularly, but I don't. And I'd love to say I do yoga all the time, but I don't. Like, it's, you know, really painting, the act of creativity is my meditation. It's my center, and it occupies a lot of my time. So, you know, I can watch myself even in my own practice of the moments that I'm struggling with something, trying to push it in a direction that I think it needs to go. And then the moments that I'm carried by epiphany and it just feels effortless and it just pours through. So it's, yeah, that's my practice, is just breathe, remember, show up, do the work, hone your skill, and get the hell out of the way.
That's awesome. And do you feel like, I mean, I'm doing a course about creating with the moon, and I wonder if, because I mean, for me it's like I used to have these like moments where I just had to create. It's like, I don't care what else is going on in the world, I'm closing my door, I gotta do something now. And then once I started tracking the moon, like I have this little tiny diary where I just write like a few things every day and keep it on the moon cycle. So I know like what I do when it's full moon time, what I do when it's new moon time. So I wonder if maybe you observe that, if you maybe feel more creative sometimes.
I love the idea, and I've heard it a lot, and I continue to learn new aspects of that. I haven't personally tracked it, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that. Other than, you know, I do notice that sometimes around full moon I stay up later painting. But yeah, nothing. I haven't gotten that analytical with it yet, that I can say for sure that I'm affected. I'm sure I am affected. It's it fascinates me and delights me that that's, you know, at play.
Or like your feminine cycle. I don't know. Do you track that? Do you feel that there's a connection?
Definitely connection to the moon. I draw that connection regularly, but not necessarily in what I how I move out into the world. I do notice, which sort of is, I find sort of annoying, is that I often end up traveling on the first couple days of my cycle, which is just like the last thing I want to do. But it's just like I've set these dates, you know, months and months and months in advance. And as my cycle, I notice that, you know, I'll usually bleed on the new moon for half the year, and then the full moon for the other half of the year. Like, so it's moving. So it's really hard to know, you know, and events are often, you know, planned around the new moon or full moon. And so I just end up traveling, and it's always sort of annoying, but it is what it is. And I do what I do.
Yeah, I can see that, right? Well, yeah, that's good. So I have one more question about the teaching. So also, like, I mean, for me, it's like I did teach at the university, and I taught artistic research, actually, which is using social research methods in art. So basically the students would make interviews or things like that. And I work with photography and film too with them. And I wonder, like, I mean, yeah, from my own experience, it's like it was hard for me to take myself out of their work, you know, like to not be like, oh, but you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this. So how do you create the space where on the one hand you do teach and you do bring something to them, but on the other hand you take yourself out somehow? You see what I mean? Like, how is that for you? How's your experience with that?
Well, so often it's actually also coming from the student. You know, I'm doing a demonstration, and they see that demonstration, they think in their head, mine has to look like that, otherwise it's wrong. You You know, just like growing up, we go to an art gallery or we look in art history books and we say, I have to make art that looks like that. Otherwise, it's wrong. And so a lot of my teaching, I talk about that, and how, you know, sometimes your style is surprising to you. So if you can just have fun and you let your hand move and you keep breathing, you might find that you're actually more of a impressionist, or you might like to be really meticulous, or, you know, there's a lot of different ways that your style can show you it's, you know, new ways of creating. And so that's part of it, is, you know, and it's also, I'm teaching a certain technique and a certain process. So it's natural that as people are painting with that process, it's going to look somewhat like my style. It's just natural, but it's just another tool in their tool belt. And I always encourage people to keep experimenting and keep learning from different people. And over time, you'll find your own style that feels really authentic and natural to you. I very rarely paint on somebody's canvas. I know a lot of teachers do regularly, you know, come in and fix things for them. And I'm very tentative around that, though I do occasionally do it, because some people just learn better that way. Like actually seeing it done, I can explain and explain to find the triangle of the light on their cheek. But until they see me just like drop in that triangle, it just doesn't compute to them. So sometimes it's really helpful that I do that, but I always ask permission. And yeah, I've seen some teachers that just come in and just will paint it for them, and so it's just a little jarring, but it's just different methods of teaching.
Yeah, and it's like different methods of getting to know the students. I've realized that I mean, also with myself, that there's people who just learn differently. Some people literally need to see it, otherwise they won't see it. You can explain them for an hour and they will still be like, what? I don't quite know what you mean.
Absolutely. There's all levels. And in my workshops, I have no experience necessary is the, you know, everybody's welcome. So I have literally people that haven't painted since childhood and they have a lot of baggage around it, and then other people that are professional artists. So it's every spectrum in between there. And so much of the process of getting to know each person is really learning where they're at and learning how to support them in the unique way that helps them forward. And so some people, that's just cheerleading. Most people actually, it's just cheerleading, saying you're doing great. You know, I like joke about having a sign that says you're doing great, you know, just marching around the room, because really it is about that. Even when you think you totally messed it up, just keep moving forward. It's fine. Just keep moving forward and be with it, be with the process. And then other people, I see that, you know, they're quite advanced, so I can push them really, really far. And it's amazing to see people advance. We have a lot of repeat students, and it's amazing every year when they come back, you can see their skill level just going so far forward.
Wow. That's wonderful. Yeah, I think that's the best teaching method. Cheering. Yeah. I love it. It's wonderful. So if somebody wants to be your student now or is interested in your awesome work, how could they get in touch with you?
They can go on my website, is autumnskyeart.com. So AUTUMNSKYE art.com, which is also how you find me on Facebook, Autumn Skye Art, and on Instagram as well. And on my website, you'll see events there of upcoming teaching or shows, as well as you can join my mailing list. And so you'll get the announcements when when different workshops go live and registration opens. So my next teaching endeavor here in BC is the Soul Portraits number 7, and it's sold out currently. There is a waiting list, but you can get on the waiting list. And then the next one that just launched yesterday is I'll be teaching at COSM in New York. That's Alex Gray's and Allison Gray's art center out there. And that's going to be the first week of July. So that you'll see on my website as well.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really, really appreciate you taking the time and talking about your wonderful art. And a quick message to everyone else out there: if you use any of these pictures, even if they're just images in the internet, I think, like in my mind, always please talk about the artists too, because artists also need to eat.
Thank you for that.
The message. Thank you, everyone. I hope to see you again next month, and bye bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.